Okay, sure. So thank you very much. We all know that in some few days to come, on the 12th of August, we will be hosting the International Youth Day. And in celebration of the International Youth Day, we also have Model Commonwealth Summit, which is upcoming in September. Please try and get muted when you join online, which is very good for our work that we want to do, because we want to keep it recorded all the time. So kindly help us in that regard. All right. So it's Model Commonwealth Summit, and if you have seen any of our materials or visited our website, what we do is to promote the work of the Commonwealth, bring the issues that young people face in their respective regions, and we did that last year with the support of the Commonwealth Secretariat in hosting this significant event here in Ghana, Accra. That was last year around this time. In fact, even around this time, we had done it, because we did it from the 1st to the 3rd of August 2024. And it was quite an insightful one, with the summit experience of our delegates at the committee breakout sessions and all of that. It was quite good to see them engage in heated dialogues in various topics, or for various topics that were given to them, and the outcome document that they were also able to produce. That was good for the purpose to which we wanted to get this platform work as much as possible. So that's very, very good. And this is also part of the session where we had high-level government officials and people in the diplomatic space also speak to us. And that was good to host such well-represented persons in government and in the diplomatic space. And then we come to why we are doing this. So the Model Commonwealth Summit is very, very much important to the work we are doing, or the platform that we seek to project across the globe, essentially to promote or amplify the Commonwealth diplomacy. And I'm sure Layne will give so much work, so much emphasis about the Commonwealth diplomacy and what the Commonwealth is doing, especially with regards to the importance of young people of the Commonwealth. And also when it comes to the CHOGM simulation, or CHOGM itself, CHOGM Summit, or even with the youth ministers meetings and all of that, I'm sure Layne will give us some quick overview of the work that is currently ongoing at that level. And then we also seek to use the platform to engage in youth dialogue, policy making, democratic participation in the issues that are critical to their development, because I'm sure young people are the majority population in the Commonwealth. And even globally, I'm sure the statistics bear it out. So very much important that we give the young people the opportunity to practice ahead of time, or in fact, make their voices known the moments that they find themselves. And we also want to use that opportunity to put a spotlight on the Commonwealth opportunities that are available to young people. So whether they are Commonwealth fellowships, they are Commonwealth scholarships, or any other youth opportunities that are available to young people, the platform gives that opportunity to amplify them and to make the young people, get the best out of it. So as part of our preparation for 2025, summit in September here in Ghana, we just wanted to recap on what we did last year. So last year around this time, we hosted Dr. Terian, also from the Secretariat, who gave us a quick overview of the history of the Commonwealth and the progress of how the Commonwealth has come now, and most importantly, with the Commonwealth Youth Development Index report and insights that was gathered in there. And then later, we also hosted Ms. Christabel Debbie, who was then the Vice Chairperson for Inclusion and Engagement with the Commonwealth Youth Council. And that was also insightful to know the work of the CYC in promoting the interest and the voices of young people of the Commonwealth. So that was very, very good to also hear from them. We learned that CYC just concluded their session in Rwanda on a consultative dialogue session that was held in Rwanda, and that was good. I'm sure we'll get Layne to give us a quick insight about what transpired in there. And last month also, with respect to not last month, I think in March, which is the Commonwealth month, we hosted Dr. Radhika Kumar, who also was very instrumental in giving us insight about, technology and the Commonwealth AI Consortium, which was very, very much, and I'm sure I'll get to Layne and ask a few questions about where are we in respect to the Commonwealth AI Consortium and the progress of the Commonwealth with respect to the opportunities that it has for young people in technology. And then we hosted Mr. Richard Api, also from the African Union, as a system analyst, to also give us some more insight in there. We are also proud to see Honorable Shirley Ayokobochi as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth currently. And I'm sure maybe Layne, we'll pick a few questions also from Layne, whether the transition process is going on well with how Honorable Shirley Ayokobochi is leading the Commonwealth Secretariat at the moment. So it's good to have you all on the call, and we welcome you to this session. And we use the opportunity to, as a model summit, what we are trying to do is to get the best out of our young people in simulating the diplomacy in the Commonwealth. And as such, we have, young people, simulate certain positions. So even as we have Secretary General of the Commonwealth, we equally have same at the Model Commonwealth level. We have a Deputy Secretary General. So we try to put a spotlight on all of these significant events within the Commonwealth. And I'm sure as we go through, by end of the summit, you'll get to know much about the Commonwealth, including this session also. It's very good to see delegates pick up countries that mostly they don't know anything about them. And after the summit, they get to fall in love so much about the countries that we have given to them to learn from. So it's good to have you all on the call, and we will use the opportunity to... Hello. Hello. Yes. So thank you very much. So we would use the opportunity to call Miss Susan Segua-Smith, who is our Secretary General for the Model Commonwealth Summit, to give us a quick overview of or her address in respect of what we are doing currently for the Model Commonwealth Summit. Thank you. Susan, are you available?
Yes, I'm available. Hi, Martin. Thank you very much. And good evening to everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Susan Smith, and I'll be the Secretary General for the upcoming summit. And I want to say I'm very excited that we have all of you on this call and you're willing to give us your time to celebrate this day with us. It's a privilege to speak at this gathering, and I just want to address that today we are here to recognize the role that as young people we are playing in building a future for the Commonwealth and the world. And this year marks a significant moment when it comes to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals with regards to the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, which I'm sure most of us are privy to. And young people are generally at the heart of this effort because over the years and like around the world, young people are putting in the effort. They are doing things to be able to contribute for a better country and a better nation and a better world. So turning global goals into real improvements in our communities, I want to say that even as we are here interacting, our main focus should always be to be the change that we desire to see. And across the Commonwealth, young people are leading initiatives in areas like education, health, the environment, and technology, showing creativity and commitment that inspires us all. We currently have our very own Ghanaian who is heading the Commonwealth Youth Secretariat, and it's very inspiring to see that even as Africans, even as Ghanaians, we can actually strive for better and have a seat at the table. And the Commonwealth has taken important steps in me. So basically, I was saying that this year marks a significant, important year because we've seen the United Nations goals, the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, and a quick one, please. I would entreat all of us to mute our microphones if we are not speaking to prevent distractions. I just want to say that young people are not only the leaders of tomorrow, but active partners today. And together, I believe that we can build a sustainable, inclusive future for the Commonwealth and beyond. And I'm excited to have us here. And I would entreat us to continue to recommend our upcoming summits to other people. And I'm looking forward to seeing each and every one of us here. I bring you greetings from the United Nations headquarters, and let's stay on the call and have an amazing time. Thank you very much, Martin, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Hi, Susan. Thank you very much. That's good to hear from you. Please extend our greetings to the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, and we hope that you also come to us with some discussions or reflections from the conference you are currently attending at the headquarters. So that's good. We want to make today's session strictly to have quite a lot of time by engaging with Mr. Layne Robinson. So I would request Emmanuel Frimpong available, who is the Deputy Secretary General, to give a quick intro of Mr. Layne, and then we'll use that opportunity to welcome Layne on the call. Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hi, Martin. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
I can.
So thank you very much. I have the singular honor today to introduce to all of us our guest speaker for today's pre-summit webinar series. So our guest speaker for today is Mr. Layne Robinson, who serves as the head of the social policy development at the Commonwealth Secretariat, where he leads the organization's work on youth, education, health, and sports policies. In this role, he provides technical advice to Commonwealth member states and forges strategic partnerships with global and regional organizations, all with the goal of improving the lives of citizens across the Commonwealth. With a rich career in public policy, Mr. Robinson is widely respected for his expertise in youth development, program design and implementation, public speaking, facilitation, and international relations. His leadership is underpinned by a strong academic foundation, holding a graduate degree in development economics and political science from the University of West Indies, Mona. Beyond his professional accomplishment, Mr. Robinson brings a deep passion for creating impactful policies that empower communities, inspire young people, and drive sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, please join me in welcoming our speaker for today, Mr. Layne Robinson, who is our first speaker for our pre-summit webinar series. It is an honor to have you join us, sir, and we hope to learn a lot from you today as we engage you with all the questions that we'll have after your presentation with us. Once again, sir, it's indeed an honor to have you join us. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to join you on the platform, and thank you for the warm welcome as well. And I hope you can hear me clearly as well.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Thank you for the wonderful words. Thank you for the wonderful words of the Secretary General, and thank you all for the good work that you do in promoting youth development all across the Commonwealth in your countries, in your communities. So Martin, it's a pleasure to join. You did say you want to have a little talk before, so
yes. It's an opportunity. So we want to have a quick session with you. I mean, one-on-one, just to. I'm not a journalist to give you the best of interviewing experience, but I'm sure it's just 3 questions from you before you start your
sure.
presentation. Sure. So we noticed that you were at Rwanda, with the CYC.
Namibia. We're in Namibia.
Namibia for the CYC consultative dialogue, and just want to take your reflections from what ensued there.
No, thank you very much again. So I'm in Namibia currently, so being warmly welcomed by the government and people of Namibia, who graciously offered to support our youth council in hosting their first consultative meeting as a Commonwealth Youth Council. The young people have taken the lead. We have a number of executive members who are here, and they took the lead in driving a conversation, a dialogue, a conference on where does the youth agenda, the youth participation agenda need to go in the Commonwealth. It was a restless conversation. They want to see change. They want to do more for the young people in the Commonwealth. And supported by a few of our countries, such as Minister of Youth from Fiji, we had senators from the Caribbean, Grenada. We had a few senior officials from Nigeria, Eswatini, Seychelles, and so on. We had a constructive dialogue with stakeholders and partners on where does the youth agenda go from here. The Prime Minister attended and participated in the closing session, as well as the Minister of Education, Youth and Culture, Arts and Culture, Sports. They all really rallied around and supported our young people as they had these difficult conversations about what we need to fix if we're going to deliver for youth in the Commonwealth. So there will be an outcome declaration that you will have access to. And I suspect maybe someone will join the call and would be happy to share their conclusions with all of you.
Okay, sure. We'll be expecting to have that and add it to our discussions during the summit that will be held here in Accra in September. So secondly, just want to take your reflection from the Year of Youth from 2023 to 2024 in its extension. What did you notice with the work of young people, the talents, the programs and projects, and what is the thinking of the Secretariat going forward in respect of this celebration?
Well, no, thanks for that. Well, the Year of Youth 2023 to 24 was a fantastic platform for young people. I mean, the idea behind it, many of you would know, is that, you know, we came out of a pandemic where many young people were set back. Their progress that they were making, you know, didn't emerge from the pandemic where they were before. So the idea of the Year of Youth was to really accelerate the youth agenda, place it back in the center or in the spotlight, and then certainly allow young people to do what they do best, which is to showcase, drive innovation, drive progress, and build back from the pandemic. So the Year of Youth, as far as we could see, and what the reports are saying, was very successful in keeping the youth agenda top of the agenda. In almost every case, in almost every ministerial meeting or conversation in the Commonwealth, people reflected that this is the Year of Youth, therefore, and you would see a number of recommended actions. It was successful in a number of major global events we had. So from the Commonwealth Youth Games to having the first, the Commonwealth Youth Workers Conference in the UK, to really looking at your Model Summit, which these are all brilliant initiatives, and a dance competition in the Commonwealth, a break dancing competition. It was just a menu of many options that young people demonstrated interest in. A song contest, one song across the whole Commonwealth. Just a few of the many, many things that the young people did as innovative, creative things. And guess what? We also had a number of major policy actions coming from the year. In some countries, these policies were revived. In one country, the Prime Minister committed to establishing a youth economy. And I could just give you more and more. At the end of the year for us, we were very happy because we have a new Commonwealth Memorandum of Understanding with all our governments, a new social agenda, if you will, for youth in the Commonwealth, along with our governments, that adequately reflected where we are in the world today. So the other contract that we had between countries in the Commonwealth didn't have things like mental health, didn't have things like technology. It was 20 years ago. And so we were able to renegotiate what those new ideas are that the Commonwealth needed to focus on in this Memorandum of Understanding. So a very successful year. And I think we just have to thank all of you, including people like you, Martin, and your team, for bringing innovation and creating new initiatives and ideas that young people in the Commonwealth can learn from in the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. I wanted to ask a last question concerning the Model Commonwealth Summit, but I want to change it to something else. Now that we have Madam Shelley Yakoboche, Madam Shelley Yakoboche as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, since she resumed office at the Secretariat, what do you see the policy direction and the tenure look like as you work together to reintegrate your policies and aspirations all together, including the Commonwealth values that we all like to be part of?
No, thank you so much. And I have to thank Ghana for giving us not one, but two Commonwealth leaders. We have Joshua Ope, who is the CYC chair, and we also have our Honorable Secretary General Shirley Botchway, who has joined the Secretariat since the 1st of April and has really come at a very critical time in the world. Many of you can see what's happening across the world, the changing paradigms, the shifting ideas, the contending ideas, the challenges for peace. And so she has come at a critical time in the Commonwealth's history, a critical time in the world's history, and she has hit the ground running. Already we are working on our new strategic plan. Already we are working on new ideas with youth at the center. She has placed youth as one of the primary priorities going forward. And so she has really come at a critical time and has hit the ground running and is very, you could see her already moving. She was already in Namibia here with a trade ministers meeting, because I think for her as well, the economic agenda, the trade agenda is an important one if we are to create the jobs for the future. So I suspect that you will hear more from her. But if you can go on the website now, you will see many of her statements and pronouncements, and you will notice that she really does value youth. We have had many meetings with her where she has said this over and over again, and she had many meetings with the CYC chair since starting. I think he's probably one of the only ones that she had met with more than once or twice. So it really speaks well about what her intentions are for youth across the Commonwealth. Thank you so much, Martin.
All right. Thank you very much, Layne. So we'll move into get to your presentation, and the reason we wanted to look at the area of the modern Commonwealth, because last year we had Madam Dr. Terian speak to us concerning the modern Commonwealth, and then we saw later there was that launch of the Global Youth Development Index report. And then there are quite a number, especially with the reflection from the Commonwealth Youth Program after it's been in existence for 50 years. And you rightly mentioned that at the time of putting that together, issues of technology and other related matters were not really considered in there. So we just want to also see, especially with the importance of young people, where do we see the Commonwealth? And so we use that opportunity to hear from you on the indicators in empowering young people across the Commonwealth. So we are your audience for the moments ahead. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. And so I want to make more time for conversation and dialogue. So I'll make a brief presentation, try to frame this discussion. And Martin, I hope you can move those slides for me as well, and you can have them. And so I want to really have a conversation with you, as I was asked to do, on the topic of the modern Commonwealth and looking at indicators for youth empowerment across the Commonwealth. I'm so happy to see so many of you on, and I would be happy to try my best to answer as many questions that you might want to ask as possible. I want to challenge you as well. This idea of the modern Commonwealth is something that, I'm very aware is not something that sits well with some of you as young people across the Commonwealth. This issue of the Commonwealth, why is it still relevant today? And many of you will know I don't shy away from having that conversation. We know the history of the institution. You would have heard from Dr. Terian perhaps as well. So the history may not be the very best, but what we try to do in the youth program is to try to harness the best we can and look forward. And I think in the conversation that we will have today, while we accept and reject the colonial past and still some of the historical connections with that, what we don't want to do is to spurn a good opportunity to look at how we can even use something like this institution to do well for the young people of the future. So the idea of the modern Commonwealth is an interesting one. And I would ask you to keep studying and unpacking that. Don't be ever afraid of challenging the thoughts you have around it. We don't. But keep using it as an opportunity to challenge those historical structural issues that even today are there. And the Commonwealth should never be afraid of talking about what that means, but more importantly, look towards the future. So that's a big part of the title, so I wanted to address that first. Our next slide. I'll talk a little bit today about why this idea of the modern Commonwealth matters. I want to have a dialogue with you about something really important, because I think you need to, as all of us are in the Commonwealth family, see what it is that our governments have committed to and how we can actually make those and take those forward, especially as we come towards International Youth Day. So I'll talk a bit about something which I hope some of you will engage around, maybe after this call, the Commonwealth commitments to youth development. And I'll go in, most of the time I'll spend around these 10 actions or 10 commitments for youth empowerment. Then I'll challenge you, and then we'll have a call to action. So I don't take too long, because I want to, the full time, that is a lot that I don't need to take, but I hope we can have a discussion on some of these ideas going forward. So let me begin with a conversation about the Commonwealth today. Next slide. So as I mentioned, in 1949, the modern Commonwealth came about. And I think Dr. Tarrant would have mentioned that, and perhaps if you missed it, that is the marking point for what we call the modern Commonwealth. The idea of the Commonwealth is an idea that existed for many, many in the 1800s. The idea of empire existed. But in 1949, we had countries who wanted to see a different future come together to create this, what we call the modern Commonwealth. And it is different in that the membership of this modern Commonwealth is voluntary. No one is forced to stay. And what we are seeing is that many countries have asked that they want to join. In 2022 and 2009, Rwanda joined the Commonwealth, which was not a country that was in the history of the Commonwealth. It was new, and it joined. And then later on, in 2022, we saw the joining of Togo and Gabon, also countries that were not there. And we have seen many other countries say, we want to join this institution because of the values that it has, those shared values that are democracy, human rights. And these are shared by others, but at least it's a voluntary. You have joined because you want to aspire for these things, and nobody's going to force you, or indeed nobody is there to really cause you much shame because of your aspiration of wanting to have a democratic system, of wanting to have a human rights framework, of wanting sustainable development. It is also, the Commonwealth today is extremely diverse. Many of you would know. We have from the very smallest island states in the Pacific and the Caribbean to some of the largest economies, countries like India, countries like the UK, countries in the G20, countries, in almost any kind of global multinational framing you want to find, you will find Commonwealth member states represented there. And it's that diversity that causes us to always be thinking and conceptualizing, how do we respond in such a diverse space? In many of those cases, the world is divided vertically. So you'll have the CARICOM, you'll have the AU, you'll have the Pacific Community. But in the Commonwealth, we have this horizontal approach. So you have countries as far as Canada and all the way across to the Pacific. So it's that diversity that helps us in a very microcosm way. It's not the whole world. It's 56 member states, but that diversity allows us to test and try new things, some of which I will share with you today. Next slide. So some of the pictures on the screen may be unfamiliar, but these are images from the last youth ministers meeting. So one of the things that the Commonwealth does very well is it convenes governments to look at issues that are important for the Commonwealth. And given that we have a huge proportion of the Commonwealth being young people, 60%, you'll hear that number over and over again, 3 out of every 5 young persons in the Commonwealth is young. Youth ministers came together. But I want to bet you, next slide, that many of you have never heard about the Marlborough House commitment. So I'm going to ask you to use the chat now, if you may. I'm going to ask you a question. I have maybe 1 or 2 other questions. How familiar are you with the Marlborough House commitment? Now, you can put in the chat, I've never heard of it. Don't feel shy to say that. I heard of it, but never read it, or I know it very well. So let me just give you a second or so. The Marlborough House commitments. I see some of those coming in from Jess, yes. The Marlborough House commitments, I'll tell you, came about because our youth ministers met in Marlborough House, the headquarters of the Commonwealth. And one of the things that they agreed was this Marlborough House commitment. So part of what I'm going to be doing now is sharing with you what they said, what they committed to, why it's important, why are these indicators important for shaping Commonwealth. So as you put there, I want to hear your thoughts. How familiar are you with the Marlborough House commitments? You may be familiar with Marlborough House being the headquarters of the Secretariat, but not the commitment that the ministers of youth, seeing that many of you are young, are doing. And I can almost bet that most people are saying never heard of it. So which is perfectly why I'm happy to do the session today to share with you about it. So I'll give you a few more seconds so that many of you can indeed put your thought, and get a sense. Never heard of it, never heard of it. Oh, it's very good. So that's consistent. So at least at the end of today's session, I would have succeeded in one thing. Many of you say you've never heard of it, would have at least learned about it, if not understand it and can share it going forward. I'm going to also ask Martin and his team to share with you the full document, maybe at the end, so you can read and digest those commitments. But for now, I'm going to just go on by sharing a few of these ideas that are in the commitments with you. So can you go to the next slide, Martin, please? Thank you. I think the overwhelming is that most persons don't know. So when you get the document, they'll upload it in the chat for you to download. This is what the ministers of youth, and I think is the largest attendance of ministers of youth that I have seen, over 50, came together in London. It was very well attended, and they looked at the post-COVID world, and they agreed that the theme for them would be, let's aim higher, let's try to deliver more for young people in the Commonwealth. So this was a very gracious aspiration that they want to do more for Commonwealth youth. Now, of course, it's in a world of limitations, but that aspiration is so important. And I congratulate all our governments, our ministers of youth, departments of youth, and our young people for having this bold aspiration. At the end of the document, they agreed what we call those Marlborough House commitments, 10 minimum standards, 10 minimum actions. These are the baseline, which if we do very well, the idea is that all our countries can begin to elevate in the Commonwealth on the youth development agenda. So what are the Marlborough House commitments? You'll read the document. It's our 10 minimum thing. These are the baseline. These are the bottom. You can do many other things over and above this, but if you do these 10 things well, our technical knowledge says to us, or the advice we have from countries, the experience we've had in the youth program for over 50 years tells us that your country will be on a path of progressing with its youth development. So let's jump into them now. And I won't go through them in length because you can read the document, but I want to just highlight these because if you do these well, if you kind of add 1 + 2, number 3 and 4, you should see some change. And I want, as we are discussing, for you to reflect on if you have these things in your country, whether those things are working, do you have them first of all, and are they working well? So let me begin. So the first one on the list is the first commitment that the ministers gave is that they agree that we should have national youth policies and legislation in place. Now, policies shape our lives, whether you believe it or not. Policies shape our lives. The things that governments do, and sometimes what they do not do, shape your lives. It impacts your lives. But in terms of youth policies, some national youth policies are significantly out of date. They are not current to the current realities. The commitment that the ministers gave said, let's keep our youth policies up to date. So first of all, let's make sure that they are relevant for today. Let's make sure that they're evidence-based. So you heard from Dr. Terran about the YDI. Let's make sure that we are grounding it in statistics and data and the experiences of people. Let's make sure it's real. And let's make sure that it cuts across, it is mainstreamed across every sector. Now, we also want to talk about legislations. Now, I would challenge any of you to think through how many legal instruments or laws or bills or acts do you have in your countries that are youth-focused? You have some generic ones that cover all people, but think through from your youth sector, tell me those laws that are youth-specific. So we have a lot of policies, many of which are out of date, but not a lot of laws or regulation to safeguard that sector. And so not in every country, but in some countries, they have youth acts that talk about the establishment of a youth council. In some countries, they have a youth work act that talks about the youth worker profession, but not many. So this is one of the things that I think would be a great indication for you to go, not just on youth policies that are mainstreamed and up-to-date and evidence-based, but legislation and regulations that are in place. And our argument in the Commonwealth is that there is not enough legal frameworks upon which to build the youth development agenda. Next slide. The second theme that we have, next one, Martin, is youth participation in policy development. So the idea here is that if we could somehow get young people to be meaningfully participating in decision-making right across the length and breadth of government, it would make a huge difference. This is not tokenism. We're talking about just having a young person be involved or integrated. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the idea of co-creation, of young persons sitting in the room with the decision makers and creating the future they want. Young people in boardrooms, in parliaments, in budget meetings, doing exactly that. Not just being heard, but influencing the agenda. Now, we believe that this is such an important thing that, we are doing so much rollout on the idea of mainstreaming and why it's important. It's so important that we have young people, not just, I think the word is, somebody said this week, young persons need to be at the table, not just at the table, but designing the table, recreating that table. And not just youth alone. This approach should apply to disabled persons, but this, it should apply to young girls. It should apply to, different indigenous people. But youth should have a seat at the table. And we believe that if that is happening, it will be a different outcome for many of our countries. Next slide. It's so important that the mechanisms that support youth are also be able to deliver on this as well. So the next question I have for you, next slide, is a simple one. If I were to ask you, those who are listening on, to tell me one space in your country where young people actually make decisions that matter, what would that space be? Martin, you could move the slide. If you were to tell me one space, a singular space, it may be a political space, maybe an economic space, a social space, whatever that space is, but one space in your country where young people actually make decisions that matter, what would that space be? It would be as low as your religion, your church group, or in your family. What is that one space where young people are actually the ones helping to make the decision? Do you know any? Next slide, Martin. What is the one space?
So technology is failing the moment. Looks like.
No worries.
But it will move. Yeah, sure.
But let's give everyone a chance. What is the one space? Do you know of any? If you don't know of any, you can say none. But if you have, you can say, let me know if you know of any space. HEI leadership, explain what that one is a little bit more. HEI, okay, one space where young people own that space and they're actually making decisions that matter within that. Not own it, they're contributing in that space meaningfully and they're making decisions that actually matter. Anybody? I see you putting a few social media. Okay, it's good. Young people actually make decision. That's what I'm saying now. Not just participating in it, in the social media, but making decisions that matter, technology and sports. Is it so? Are young people actually in driving the technology space, making decisions that matter? Somebody is saying Model Summit. Yes, that would be a good example because you are shaping this one on your own. You make the decisions, you design it, you design the webinar. Some people say technology. So the challenge here is that as you look to edutech, fintech, I see them coming in, interesting ideas, but I want to challenge you to think, who are those young people who are designing or contributing to these spaces? Do you know who they are? What decisions are they making? Our argument is that not enough young people are in these spaces where the decisions are being made. And so the call for, this is why the minister said, youth participation in decision-making is important. Ensuring that young people are involved in, hear me now, for designing policy, formulating policy, policy, evaluating policy. Are you seeing young people involved in all of those aspects? This is important. So the challenge here is that not enough of that is happening. Next slide, I hope it's working now. The third indicator that our minister said was that we needed to see within the youth development space, greater focus on social inclusion and equity. And that is really talking about a Commonwealth where young people are, the opportunities for young people are not based on gender, disability, or income. Young people, you're able to integrate meaningfully young people, you focusing on access to those opportunities, and not just trying to create an equal platform, but an equitable one for them. And they felt that if they could work towards having a more equitable Commonwealth, it would make a difference for young people. Next slide. I'll go into this one a little bit more. Some of the ideas are still coming in. Youth parliaments, yes, that's important in terms of youth participation. And then they went a bit further. The minister said, so we're going to 10, and they said the fourth important indication of what we could do as a minimum standard is to commit to having youth engagement mechanisms. And this is important because if I should check with you, how many of your countries have youth councils or student councils or youth-led bodies? You have Model Summit, you're trying to have a Model Summit here, but how many of these youth engagement mechanisms are in place and are working well? Some of you may not have them, or some of them are not working effectively. So the meeting here in Namibia was all about youth councils, national youth councils, and how they're supporting the Pan-African Youth Union and how that supports the Commonwealth Youth Council. And what we found was that national youth councils were not autonomous. They were politically influenced, they were not political, they were not inclusive in many cases, they did not have enough funding. So when we talk about these youth engagement mechanisms, it's an important indicator of what is happening. But what we know right now is that many of them are in trouble. Whether you're talking about youth parliaments, and whether you're talking about youth networks, the challenges are there, youth peace building institutions, they are struggling for resources. So the idea here is that the minister said if we could have youth engagement mechanisms that are effective and are well supported, if young people are the largest in the demographic, in some countries 68%, then they should have the biggest microphone. But what we are saying is that some of those microphones, those opportunities, those platforms are just not shouting loud enough. They are not, because of the challenges that they face. So that's number 4, youth engagement mechanisms in place. Next one, another important one, number 5, importantly, is safeguarding. Now, safeguarding has come into the fray for the youth ministers as one of the minimum things that they should have, because the ministers believe that they should protect young people from harm, whether they're online or offline. It's not optional. But what we found is that in our research, many countries do not have that wide-ranging safeguarding framework to protect children or young people. In fact, that is one of the areas where the regulations and the laws are quite ad hoc across the Commonwealth. But as a minimum standard, a young person needs to know that when they come into a youth sector, a youth development space, be it working with the Ministry of Youth, be it working in the school environment, that safeguarding is part and parcel of what they can expect from their government, what they can expect from their youth work professionals. And so the minister said, this is another minimum standard. We're halfway through. Protecting our young people from harm online and offline is a non-negotiable. As I said, we have done the testing, and we know that not enough laws are there to protect young people or safeguard them from harm. We're talking about sexual abuse. We're talking about emotional abuse. We're talking about economic exploitation, social exploitation, you name it. Enough of that is not there across the Commonwealth. In fact, it is a weak area that exposes many of our leaders, many of our governments as well. Next slide. So 6 going to 10, remember now, these are the minimum. So what the minister said, these are, if we have these 10 indications, things should be going well. And you should be thinking, does my country have these things in place? If not, why not? What can I do to help? Let's go to, so this number 6, jobs and entrepreneurship. So one of the things that the Commonwealth believes in is the idea of not just political empowerment or social empowerment, but economic empowerment. That young persons need to be economically empowered. They need to have decent jobs. They need to have opportunities for apprenticeship, skills, startup opportunities to be supported. Because, in many countries, youth unemployment is a huge, in fact, I may tell you, for me, it's a crisis, and a crisis that is intending to get much worse. But I'm just not, for me, I don't see the outcry from everyone saying this is a real priority. And, I just feel that people are getting complacent with the fact that you can have thousands of people come out of schools or thousands of people not in employment, education, or training. And I don't see the outcry, the big outcry. And I think countries are trying their best, but there's a lot of work to do here. I was just in Pakistan a few days ago, where one of our countries, Pakistan, shared this ministerial meeting. But in that meeting, when you read the document, we gave a lot of innovative ideas that we should be exploring in our countries if we are to tackle unemployment, create new opportunities. Among them are opportunities for new climate, whether blue or green jobs. But one of them that I really thought was interesting that we researched and we want to share is around digital skills. And the Secretary General has spoken about that. But importantly, we're talking about using gaming, the gaming industry. Now, many of you would know the gaming industry is a huge new industry. And I think most of our countries in the global south are not benefiting as much as they could benefit from that new and emerging industry. Also talk about the creative industry. We talk about our countries being great in sport, but when you check all of them, countries like Jamaica, Kenya, they have not created an economic sector around that sport industry. The athletes do well, but when we had COVID, a lot of those athletes could not survive. We have not created the economic space around even things like sport. So when we look at it, whether we're talking about the digital skills, when in Pakistan, we launched the first esports policy that was intended to really target youth, go into the schools, create not just people who will be playing games and learning from them, but engaging those to design and create games for export. It's a huge market. Some would say, I don't know if you know the numbers, but what I've heard and seen is that the gaming industry is bigger than even the music and film industry coming together. But again, opportunities for employment and entrepreneurship are there, but are not being accessed maybe significantly across our countries. Next slide. So we're going 7, a big one, a huge one right now is this minimum. This one, I could spend the whole day and maybe another future session, you could talk about professionalizing youth work. Now, youth work, when I talk about youth work, I'm talking about not young people, but the people who work with young people. So you have them in government ministries as officers, you have them in the provinces as officers working on youth, and their job is to support the youth sector all the way down. And I always say it's like the youth worker is like the teacher in the classroom. You have teacher, you have student or learner. The youth worker are the people who support young people as coaches, mentors, guiding them at all the levels. And what we find in the Commonwealth, and many of our countries across the world, is that the youth work sector is not recognized and valued, or there is any training for the youth workers. If we say we have 60% of our Commonwealth being youth, and in some of your countries like Uganda, it's 68, in Pakistan, 70% of the population is youth. There should be an equivalent number or huge numbers of youth workers who are trained and skilled, who have the right standards, right ethics, and that profession should be recognized. And so in the Commonwealth, we have been championing this for many, many years, for 50 years, trying to buind this sector. And I'll go to the next slide. I have a question for you here on this one, which I think is important, which is to say, if you wanted to study youth development, if you wanted to really study youth development, many of you are young people now, you're learning about youth, you're experiencing it because you're young. But if you wanted to learn the theories and the practice of youth development, which institution would you go to in your country? And this is the challenge I'm putting out, because I know many of your universities, let me see what you're gonna say. If you wanted to study youth development, the theory and practice, I'm not talking about just being young, I'm talking about the academic study, the professional study of youth work, where would you go? Please put it in the chat. Let's see if you have an idea where you would actually go to study youth development, because this is why it's there. It's a minimum. And I'm going to challenge you to say that it's not there. Let's see what you have in place. Anybody? Where would you go to study youth work if you really wanted to? So let's see. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So I'm seeing Bismarck saying, not sure there's any program like that in Ghana. Yes, this is important. So the idea here, the idea behind this one, and like I said, I could spend a whole session on this one, is that sector that is so important for youth development. In every field, you find professionals coming through with the skills and knowledge and competencies to drive it. If it's lawyers you're talking about, if it's nurses, if it's doctors, just to name a few, there's a framework. If I were to become to check the medical field, how many of you would agree for a medical person to come to you who has not been trained? But yet still, in the youth sector, it is quite acceptable for people to be engaging with youth, working with youth in the community at national level and so on, who have not had training, who have not had the skills, who have not gone through any process of or standard, that is acceptable. And so one of the big things that the ministers said, and that is why the response is so low, there are not many places in the universities or higher education institutions that are leading on youth work. And it's strange, isn't it strange that you talk about a huge youth population, huge youth bulge, huge young Commonwealth, and the space to have discussions at the academic level, to talk about their issues, to study them, to unpack them, to research them. You can't tell me institutions to do this. This is one of the, for me, if there's some solutions out there, big solutions, this one on number 7, youth work professionalization is one of them. Next slide. I hope I could engage you a bit more on that. Number 8, I'm going to 10, and then we'll have a discussion a little bit on some of these. Now, the ministers also said in London when they met that the 8th minimum commitment that they want to make is to ensure that young people, that they match the commitment and urgency of young people in the environment. Now we know our young people are already driving the climate change debate. They are calling for lots of changes because some of you would know, if we're not careful, the next generation of young people will for the first time in the history of the world, inherit a world that is less than the world that they have gotten before. The first time in the history, every generation before has always sought to leave the world in a better shape than the generation that followed before it. It is the first time in history that we are at risk of leaving a world that is not as sustainable in terms of the environment for our children. They will not experience some of the animals that we have experienced for many years. They will not see some of the, the issues around the destruction of the climate is remaining real. So what they said is that as ministers, they will try their very best to match the commitment already demonstrated by our young people. And that includes things like supporting them to be a part of the negotiating teams that they go to these international meetings, supporting their training in terms of understanding how to better, integrate youth into these big projects that are intended to mitigate and adapt against climate change. It's supporting the young people with the legal framework to make sure that we're safeguarding the world, So what they said in here is that they need, as ministers, to support the young people to be able to carry this message of environmental sustainability. Number 9, and then one more. So number 9 is an easy one. What they said was, if we're going to do a really good job, we can't have ad hoc policies and rules everywhere. There has to be some cohesion. There has to be some vertical and horizontal cohesion. Vertically, we need to see whatever is happening globally, aligned to what is happening regionally, aligned to what is happening nationally. We need to see that alignment going all the way up. We don't want to see, doing some of this work at the national level, a different set of goals at the regional level, and another different set of goals at the international level. We need to see this coherent alignment that makes it easy for us to really push on with the work rather than getting pulled in different places, because there are different goals, there are different arguments. So, sometimes I've seen when you go to the UN, you hear a different set of arguments sometimes about what's the priority. You go to the regional body, whether it's AU, CARICOM, you hear a different set of priorities. You come back to the national, and you go to the community even, it's different. What they're saying is we need to work harder to align all of these things so that there's coherence. Last one. And the very last one they said was, having done everything so far, you need to monitor, you need to measure, you need to track progress. You can't just be doing these things. Even if you say these 9 things here, we need to be tracking that we're actually making progress. And one of the things we have done in our secretariat is that we have tried to hold our countries, support our countries in implementing these and asking them, how are you doing on each of these? And every 6 months, every year, we ask them, send us a report, tell us how you're doing on these minimum commitments. Why? Because, of course, if you're going to actually be accountable, you actually need to measure. You can't manage what you don't measure. And so you need to know that, okay, maybe I haven't started, I didn't have a youth council, but today we have done the work, we have one. Maybe we didn't have any youth policy that was up to date, now we have one. So that's essentially the 10, and these could make for a rich discussion, but next slide. So I want to open, the space for you, but here are the 10. Yeah, so if I'm looking at them now, in the whole, you'll go to the document that I asked them to put in full, so you can read the full ministerial outcome statement. But right in the annex, they've committed to these 10 things: youth policies and legislations in place. Where there are none, youth participation in a mainstreamed way across the policy agenda, youth inclusion and equity. Young people need to have access to these opportunities, not looking particularly whether they are not being deprived because of their gender, their age, or whatever. There needs to be some equitable access. Youth engagement mechanisms, whether these are national youth councils or national parliaments or whatever mechanisms you are talking about, those need to be there and effective and supportive. The issue of safeguarding, making sure that young person, there's no harm that comes to young persons, particularly online or in offline context, that there's economic opportunities and looking for those new opportunities that are emerging that can be tapped, so that we deal with the crisis, which is youth unemployment. Youth work professionalization. I mentioned if there's one of the simple solutions we need to have is to begin generating more people with the qualification and skills to deal with the youth issues. People who know how to deal with youth mental health challenges, people who know how to deal with young persons who want to get into employment, young persons who know how to work with and support young persons as coaches, as mentors. We don't have enough of them. And I could compare what we have in schools or with the police or with the doctors. There's a ratio. What is the ratio of youth workers to the young people in our countries? Given that we have a youth bulge, we're just not seeing enough people with those skills out in the community, in the provinces working with youth. Environmental sustainability to match the urgency and the call for young people, and then alignment, vertical and horizontal coherence with the global agenda, and of course, monitoring and evaluation and learning to track that progress and learn and relearn how new ideas and new approaches can actually help in the way forward. Next slide. So now as I wrap and then open the floor, next slide, Martin, hope it goes. The question, the challenge I have for you, are these just beautiful worded texts, or are these real commitments that can be actioned? This is the challenge that I think you would want to know. Are we just making these are all sounding, to my mind, 10 very powerful things that are there, but are these just beautiful, beautiful words? Next slide. In your opinion, last question. In your country, if you're thinking through, you're active in your country or a youth leader, is your country delivering at least half of these commitments? Yes, no, or you're not sure? Let's see if you could put some things in the chat. Is your country delivering even half of these commitments? Yes, no, or not sure? Seeing a lot of no's going up. We have 10, 10 minimum. Some yes, there's some yes there. But the no, not sure, there's some work for you to do. Yes, Jess, I see you. Stephen, okay, we have Lloyd Skid, we have Mavis. These are realistic, but not all achievable. We want to have a discussion about these. No, yeah. So we are seeing a variety of, I think, more no's coming through from what I'm seeing. But it's important that you reflect on whether at least half of these considerably. Some people are saying yes. So one of the things we know is that not all the countries are at the same place. I was in Pakistan, as I told you. Pakistan is showing great leadership. 2 or 3 years ago, I was, when Pakistan really took this agenda on, they had a very small ministry team, maybe about 7 people in the Prime Minister's office. When I went back the last few days, they have over maybe 50 to 70 people because they have agreed that they need to invest more and they are doing everything they can. So not all the countries are at the same place. Some countries are doing, I'm in Namibia now. Namibia has, training for its youth workers. NAMCOL is training young youth workers, not just in the diploma and degree, but in master's and postgraduate studies in youth work. This is fantastic. They have a National Youth Council supported by law. They have a youth policy and a huge youth team that is working even on their Youth Development Index. So some countries are really just driving through this agenda and other countries not so much. Another country, Malta, has a Youth Act in place where all of its youth workers are supported by a law. So I want to hear from you. Are your country supporting even half of these? If so, why not? Let's go to the next slide as we wrap. So the call to action for you today is a simple one. Whereas we are coming up to Youth International Day of Youth on the 12th, your action is Commonwealth action. We're not just here to talk. What we're saying is now, before you said you didn't know about the commitments, well, now you know. What action are you going to take? And your action individually, as a group, as a summit, whatever sphere of influence you have, will be a Commonwealth action. It has to be a Commonwealth action because each of you are Commonwealth citizens. And as you take pick on this discussion and these ideas, if you remain silent or do not act, then you're also contributing to the challenges that we have in this space. This idea of empowerment is a powerful one. Next slide. So the call to action is that on the 12th, we have International Youth Day. May I challenge you that to say before the end of this week, each person here picks at least one of these indicators or themes and start a conversation, maybe online or in your community or in your network, on how to make this commitment real. Maybe you need to write a letter and ask a question, or in your social chat, just put these on and saying, my country is doing 1, 2, 3, and celebrate that. But start a conversation about these. These are the minimum. We believe that if we do these well in the next few years, by the time we get to the next ministers' meeting, we should be seeing the change in all our countries in a progressive way, aiming higher, delivering more for young people. The last slide, Martin, thank you. So my last word to you in this presentation is together, we have the capacity to transform the lives of millions of young people all across the Commonwealth. I believe that. It is in my heart, I know that if each of us takes the responsibility seriously in your family to begin that change there, in your religious group or organization, in your youth council or your student body, in your community, in your local government, in your job, if everybody really puts their heart on it, I believe we can transform the lives of millions. And through your summit, you have a job to do. Thank you very much for listening. And I hope that I've given you some ideas for consideration that you can certainly, we can have a discussion on. Happy to discuss those with you. And I commend you to these commitments that are written in the ministerial statement given by our youth ministers in 2023 during the Year of Youth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sir Robinson, for this wonderful presentation. Please, let's give a reaction to the presentation given by Mr. Robinson. I'm sure, so that you can take a breath before your questions will come in. All right. Thank you so much. I think we will get a lot of points from the Commonwealth Youth Ministers Meeting Declaration. I think it's quite a good document, and you already have shared that with me, so I'll share with my delegate so that they can also read from it and get insight from the commitment they have made so far. Before they come in, I'm sure I have two questions that I would want to put to you before they ask their questions. First of all, it's been 2 years since this declaration. Are you able to, because on the 10th point is about monitoring and evaluation, do we have any indication whether countries have begun or national youth councils have begun implementing this, outcome statement? And is there anything that the Commonwealth is concerned about with respect to this? This is the first question, and probably let me add the second question so you can answer.
I'll take this one. No, so yes, we are seeing quite a few of countries tackling these. And I said to countries, if you can't do 5 or 10, start with 3 or 2. And so we are seeing them, and we collect a progress report from them, each country. We have a focal point in each country, and we ask them to submit, and we even give them an incentive to try to make sure they are responding. Why are we doing this? Because we want to know. So countries are responding. To my mind, I think there could be more urgency on it, to be fair. I'd want to see more countries really go at them. I think they're all achievable. We can do them. We know we have the policy guidance to help our countries to do it. And so, yes, I think the countries are responding well. Some countries have seen setback because they have changed ministers, they have changed ministerial teams. So there are setbacks there. They have had elections. And so those things happen. But we are hoping that we can, and this is where you come in as young people, on International Youth Day, call for the action, call for a progress report, go and sit with your leaders, encourage them, give your ability, share your sense. I can help you with this one. I can help. What can you do to help your country accelerate? So in short, yes, the country, we have a good list, which I think we will report on in November. We'll have another report in November. So countries are working busily now to then report in November. To see how well we're doing. And then we can hopefully have another conversation about whether we have 90% of the Commonwealth making progress or not. But there are challenges, rest assured, and those challenges are real ones, and we are trying to help our countries as well with those.
All right, thank you. I'm sure we will do that. We'll start getting to the offices of the youth ministers and the national youth councils to find out what work is being done and how we can help, most importantly. My second question is, as young people, sometimes our projects quite expensive to fund. It could be that it's not just about providing money, but it could be the facilitation. It could be some resources that can be put together. Where should we go? At the national level, regional level, or the Commonwealth level? Where should we look at all of these motivations that can help, or the incentive that can help young people implement their youth-led projects?
And so I think you should try all of them, all of the above. I mean, it's an easy way to say, but for each of these, there are opportunities. I'll give an example. So the Asia region did not have a regional platform like how you have the PYU, Pan-African Youth Movement in Africa, or we had the Pacific Youth Council in the Pacific. The Asia region did not. Working with the regions, we were able to, in January this year, create for the first time the Commonwealth Alliance of Youth Organizations. Young people who have come together to say, we want to take charge of our region. That was our looking upwards. I talked about Pakistan. I was there. Pakistan said, okay, I want to do a national esports policy. And I can say to you, okay, since esports, I don't know any young person who is not doing some kind of gaming. Maybe it's just playing games like Candy Crush or whatever, up to the more fancy Fortnite and others. Young people are into gaming. Where is the national policy or set of actions that are guiding that new? So Pakistan took the lead. That's a national, and then at the Commonwealth level, we continue to champion things like digital skills all across the Commonwealth. But where do you get the funding? Sometimes I met with the minister from Fiji this week, and we sat, and when he looked at all the 10, we went to the 10, he said, but some of these are achievable. So part of the issue here is that the funding that we have in the youth sector and the youth space sometimes is being used to do things that are not giving you the results you want. So I can't tell you how many countries I know who are doing, some of the camps and all these youth camps and so on, which are great in themselves, but how much money, how much resources is it taking, and is it giving them the returns on the investment that they are putting? And I said to you, if you instead put that investment on, for example, the youth work, or, could you get a different response? So while we're not saying there's enough, maybe you might feel that there's not enough money, but even on the things that you're spending on, are you seeing the return on investment? We talk about sport. Okay, so much money goes into sport. And I'll challenge anybody to show me the return on investment on the sporting thing, because we have not created an industry around the sport. In countries as great as Jamaica, which has, people will tell me about Bolt and this one and that. Where is the industry around them? Okay, Kenya has a huge tradition in sport. Show me the economy that is being created that has your sports industry created around it. We still have not been. So when you say to me, where's the money? We just need probably to sharpen our perspective, to my mind, somewhat, and do a bit more thinking about the investments we have. One more example. I said to anybody sometimes, if you could tell me what, in many country cases, in many places, what is the number one killer of youth in the world? What takes most lives in youth in many countries? What is the number one thing? Can you tell me what it is? Can you put in the chat? What is the one thing that is taking more lives than anything else? Maybe the top two or so. Tell me, which one do you think it is? What do you think is taking most youth lives? Type it in the chat. Okay, drug abuse, I see that coming up. Yeah, interesting. Good. Some people typing war. Interesting. Yeah. I would challenge you, as you keep writing, gang suicide was good. Some people we haven't spent the time to look at road traffic deaths. Road traffic deaths. Go back and look at the data again and see the mortality in terms of road traffic deaths as it targets youth. And the second one is suicide rates. But when I look at what the spend is for many countries, sometimes I don't see many funding going into those areas. Those road accidents are not even on our agenda. But the data tells me that it is an important issue. But I'm not seeing this. So what I'm saying to you is, if you want to change lives, this is the point I'm making, the question, Martin, then there needs to be probably going back to that evidence base, looking at where you're spending so far and how that changing that will make a difference. I'll hold here and then take some other question. But I hope you get the point.
Yes, I get it. I get it, sir. Thank you very much. So please, if you can put on your hand in order to ask your question so we can identify you, because we can see quite many of us on the call. So let's do this. If you have any question and you want to, it's good to have your name, because if I have numbers, I'm not sure there's any human being having numbers as their names. So please do that. Janice, you have a question? Quite briefly. Yes, can you unmute? Hello, Janice, can you hear us? Yes.
Hello, please can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Good evening. So thank you so much, Mr. Layne Robinson. It was good to hear from you and everything you said about the themes and the Marlborough commitment. So I have one question. What I do see recurrent, well, in my head from everything you've said, is that there are some setbacks in countries that typically have a hierarchical orientation, where you have to heed to your elders. You don't do anything beyond what your elders say. And with this societal norm of paying attention to your elders, has it contributed to the setbacks we have in some countries in achieving these things when it comes to youth development? Just something I wanted to know.
Yes, Martin can take more so that we give more people a chance.
Okay, sure. So I have here AU EU Youth Lab Coordinator. It will be good to have you mention your name so your question can come in.
Thank you so much, Martin. My name is Lawrence Mully. Layne, so good to hear from you. I've had the privilege of not just working for, under Layne at the Secretariat, but also just looking at how he's been able to mentor all of us, but also just create systems and structures in countries. So Layne, thank you for that. And it was a delight to be here. My question is this. You've been in the youth sector for quite a while. According to you, what's the best practice in terms of, like, you named all those 10 themes? Where's the best that you've seen this work and why? And then what do you think about, there's a lot of uprising among Gen Zs and young people that is coming across a lot of countries. What do you think is the missing point? Is it that the young people are intolerant and they are speaking truth to power? Or do you think the systems and structures and data and policies need to be more strengthened to support the young people? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. Good to hear you.
All right. So thank you. Yes. So Bismarck also want to ask a question.
Yeah. Hello, Martin. Thank you, and thank you so much for the exposure, and especially choosing to talk about the Marlborough. It's a commitment I've not heard of, so I'm one of your students who has never heard of it. But whilst you were presenting, I went online to download the statement that came out of that commitment. My issue, what I want to infer from you is, beyond the commitment, which I think is very well placed, is there any mechanism to hold the Commonwealth countries maybe accountable, or is there any mechanism to find out what they are doing? Is there any skill that is measuring like putting the countries on some kind of ranking to know which ones are more committed to youth policy? They've done that, so that we can see vividly what is happening in other countries. I know from the youth front, I lead a student space. I work with the All Africa Student Union. From the youth front, there are a number of things we are doing, especially when I heard you talk about the environment and especially the esports. There are two key things that at the All Africa Student Union we are very keen on and we are very much doing a lot of work on. But I don't see that escalating to the national level that much. So as the Commonwealth has been very much aware and has come up with this document since 2023, is there any mechanism to monitor what is going on in the countries and then maybe report on it so that we can take inspiration from that? Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll take these for these and I'll try to answer briefly. To Bismarck, I'll start at the end. Yes, Bismarck, there are two things that I would comment to you. One is we have an overarching YDI, Youth Development Index. You would have heard about it, I think, last year if you were on. What this does, it tracks a set of indicators that we then are able to track over years. We can go back 10 years and we are doing it every few years to see, are we making progress? And then we rank all our countries and all countries in the world, over 180 countries, to see if we're making progress. So on a more, if you take youth development tracks slowly, changes in youth development takes a while. So what you want to do is to keep doing this kind of measure over time, and you should see countries getting better or getting worse. And then you can use your analysis skills to see which one of those indicators they are failing on and why. So in an objective way, using the data, you can do that using the YDI. The YDI is a global tool, but we also are encouraging countries to have a regional and national YDIs. So one of the questions I would say to you, we have provided support for some countries. Do you have a national YDI to look at those sub-national issues between provinces or between regions? You can have a tool that actually does that. And again, I'll give you like Pakistan, who has done it. They can now look at the sub-region and see which of their regions is doing well and treat with the issue. The second tool is that we do collect on the Marlborough House commitments. As I mentioned, we have a record, we are keeping a record, and every few months we ask our countries to give a record. How have you done on these 10 things? And they can say to us, no progress made, yes, I'm making progress, it complete, not complete. And that gives us a good perspective on which to see where all our countries are. So I'll give you those two, and we collect this information not to penalize countries, because that's not the work of the Commonwealth. Our job is to open a dialogue and a conversation because we are interested in youth development. In terms of the question that Lawrence asked about what is the best practice out there and why are we seeing the uprisings happening, it's a simple answer. I'm yet to see any country that has meaningfully put these kind of big commitments in place that is going to erupt. If you have a functioning, effective youth council that can have meaningful dialogue in a country, not a political entity on behalf of the ruling party or whatever, but an objective institution that can discuss real issues with their government on behalf of youth, or if you have a good youth work sector in place that is supporting your young people well and helping them to, unpack difficult. I've yet to see any country that has done that kind of investment that is going to be uprising. The countries, when you check back, that are having these uprising, you can walk one of the most popular ones was, in 2011 when I was in the UK. The big example there, and I think it's you can study it now. In the UK in around 2011, there's a huge uprising. And when you check what happened in the years before, the funding for youth development had been cut significantly. And immediately, the next few years, like the uprising happened, young people felt dissatisfied, disassociated, you name it. You can go and study that one as an example to say, look at it. I'm yet to see a country that has invested really well in all of these things, and then you have the result. So part of the reason why we're having these uprisings is because we have not done the basic things that we need to do. That is my belief. Good countries, there are some countries that are doing really well that I'm really proud of. Countries like Malta, very small country, but I always say because Malta has tried to put in almost all of these things. And when you go there, I was there with them, their young people are doing well. Go to some of the countries that are top of the index, Singapore, they are trying to put in most of these things so that their country do well. When you look at, so some of the countries, some of the countries are doing well in one or two. It really works well if you try to comprehensively treat with all of these. And so a country like Uganda is doing really well on youth participation because they have youth in parliament, excellent, but they need to look at the whole picture as well, and so on and so forth. And then we have the issue about the elders and the cultural shift. Youth work that we talk about is really a consciousness raising exercise, a conscience raising space. It's challenging existing paradigms and those cultural ideas that hold us back as a. Why is it that it's okay to say that a child should be seen and not heard? What does that make sense in a modern context? Think about what we're saying. If a child is seen and not heard, the child has a contribution to make. A young person, you're telling me it's better to not have that perspective than to have it. So when we put these ideas, some of them were useful for the time that we're in, but in our day-to-day, some of those structures need to be broken down. If they're not broken down, it's going to keep holding back our countries. One of them, I think, is while there needs to be respect, young people do need to be able to create this space where they can share what is their perspective on issues. That is the youth mainstreaming agenda. And in a country that really has a genuine youth mainstreaming agenda, where young people, not just young people, the older ones, these people with disability are at the table, those countries are going to do well. If you have marginalized people left out of the conversation, your country is sowing the seeds that will, in effect, give you some difficult results in the future. Let's go to some of the next ones, Martin.
Okay, sure. So, Zalisa, you have indicated, I'm sure this will be our last batch of questions, just so that we don't keep you too much on the call. So, Zalisa, you mentioned in the chat that you have a question. Could you ask your question? And okay, so whilst we are waiting for Zalisa to do that, I can see a hand up.
Hello?
Enoch? Oh, okay,
Hello?
Zalisa, you are there. Yes, yes, please ask your question.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Robertson and fellow delegates. My name is Alisa, and I've been inspired by the growth of the Commonwealth, especially with the non-English speaking nations like Gabon and Togo recently joined. This makes me wonder, like, if more Francophone countries come to join the Commonwealth in the future, what key step and commitment will be required, and how can young leader like me actually contribute to make this vision as like a reality? Because I'm from Africa, so I think like maybe if I want to join one day, like what am I going to do to train that Commonwealth?
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. We have two more. We'll take those two more, and then we probably would end on that. So, Enoch, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sure.
And a big thanks to the speaker for this insightful presentation. My name is Enoch, and I'm the delegate for Malta. And I just heard Mr. Layne mention that Malta is doing so well for the youth in the country. And I would want him to mention a few notable policies that in any field or relating to this commitment that Malta has been able to really establish for the youth in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. But you know, that should be a research anyways. So
No, man, it's
okay,
good.
so there was a hand. I think Michael, you want to ask, and that will probably end it there.
Yeah, good day,
Yes,
everyone. My
sure.
name is Michael, and I'm from Ghana, and I'm a delegate of New Zealand, actually. And I want to commend Mr. Layne for the wonderful presentation. My question is that Mr. Layne described a lot of challenges that are affecting the youth and most youth councils. And I believe that these problems, they demand full-time attention from individuals in order to solve them. But when you look at most of the youth councils, they mostly depend on volunteers to undertake their activities. And I want to know whether these things are sustainable enough to address these challenges. Yeah, that's my question.
Excellent question. It's good. So I'll take these three. So I'll begin with Michael. Michael, that's what we are saying. The idea of professionalizing youth work. So I'm going to challenge you again to go and download Youth Work in the Commonwealth, a growth profession, another document that spells out if you're going to grow a sector from this volunteer, unprofessional, just have this kind of non-professional way of working, what difference it's going to make. And I can tell you, if you invest in the youth work sector, the people working with youth, you will have a longer term investment on the progress of it. It is, while we appreciate the work of the volunteers and so on, we are saying in the Commonwealth, a youth worker who is trained, who you can harness their skills and experience and the competencies, will give every young person a better outcome. A youth worker who knows youth development, and because of their training or experience and have gone through it, will design better youth policies. I wish I had the time, but another day I'll take you through just the theories of youth work. Not everything that countries are doing will add value to your youth work sector or youth sector. Not everything that the ministry puts out, when you analyze the policy, is actually going to make the country benefit, because we know the theory and the practice that makes a difference. The research guides us. Another time I'll go into the different types of youth work that you have in your countries, and you can then deconstruct is which type of youth development path my country is on, so that I can see where we will go. In our field, where we can look at your policy and tell you where your country is heading. That is the benefit of having not just people who are volunteering because of the goodness of their heart, but properly trained people who know what they're talking about in youth sector. And as you found out, not many of you know where those institutions are, but we provide a degree and a diploma, and now masters and PhD for institutions, any university that wants to offer these trainings, they can check the Commonwealth. We can provide you with the resource to go and invest in your school so that you can have the training. Because it makes sense. If you have a large youth population, you should be having, my thinking is that you should be having experts coming out who are experts on youth and mental health, experts on youth development, experts on all these things. It is not there in so. So that's one of the big challenges we have. And the ratio of youth worker to young people is crazy. You know, if you tell me about the ratio of schools, people tell me it's a 1 to 32 in the class for teacher, the ratio of doctor to patient in the country, the ratio of police to people. There's all ratios. What is the ratio of youth worker to young people in the country? You check it and you'll go back and say there's not enough properly trained youth workers all the way from the top into the country, into the country. So yes, Michael, it is right. The challenges are there, but they are not insurmountable. They can be done if the investment goes in the right direction. Enoch talked about Malta. Thank you for joining, Enoch. So Malta has what we call a Youth Work Act. It's one of the few Youth Work Act that actually safeguards the youth worker profession. And it's one of the examples. You know, Malta has, as a result of the act, they have to have a board that actually checks the people who are going to be working with youth. And they have, they have to get a license to work with the youth. It's not just anybody from any field with any background can go and work. They have to go through, just like any other profession, they must go through a process. So the Youth Work Act, which I commend to you for Malta, is one outstanding act that many other countries in the Commonwealth do not have. And you can check yours as well. You know, you have an act for teaching or for doctors, but you check it for youth workers, it is not there. Malta even has the training and development training for these people. After a few years, you have to go back and show that they're learning, they're relearning or retraining so that they can meet the issues in their country. Zalisa, thank you so much for joining us from Ivory Coast. If your country chooses to join, or if you don't choose to join the Commonwealth, that's okay. What we need to do is, as a young person, we can still offer the opportunities like a platform like this one to work with you, so you can learn the same principles that we talk about here on this call. You can implement them in your country too, even if it's non-Commonwealth. The tools that we have, the YDI, are available for non-Commonwealth countries. In fact, countries like the Philippines, Cambodia, Vietnam, have all taken the tools that we have and are implementing them in their country. And many of our countries have still not done them. So the YDI is now a global tool being used by countries all over the world, many of them outside of the Commonwealth. So the tools are for everybody. We believe, the thing about the Commonwealth, it's for everybody. This Commonwealth is this common knowledge, and the tools are, you can go and have them. The degree and material we talk about, we share them with any country. It's for the world, because when young persons in every country are developed, are empowered, it makes the world a better place for all of us. That's our goal, that's our objective, that every young person, wherever they are, should have a bright future, a positive future, an enriching future. And that will not come unless we do the things that are right to get us there. These 10 commitments are in that direction, and they are the minimum. Remember I said that to you now. They are not the best. They are not the total. There are other things you can do over above these. These are just the minimum. If you do these well, your country should be on a path of great youth empowerment. Thank you, Martin, for these questions.
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Layne, for the opportunity. We've loved to engage with you, and I'm sure in future we'll have the opportunity to have you again to speak to us. Most importantly, could be to have you join the summit at some point, wherever we will host it. So thank you so much for the opportunity. So lastly, before we leave the call, as you all know, this is also as part of our commitment for the International Youth Day celebration. And we have a speaker just to give us an insight on the International Youth Day team and the focus that we have currently for us. I would call Cillian to introduce the guests to that effect. So thank you very much, Layne, also for your insightful presentation.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to join you as well. And I really appreciated the questions. And I hope something would have been passed in the exchange that can motivate you as you look towards International Youth Day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, too. Hello, Cillian.
I'm Martinson.
Yes.
Can I
So
be heard?
just a quick introduction of our guest, and then we will take a remark so we could, end our call. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Yes, our next speaker is Ms. Fabiola Thomas, a Haitian-born youth diplomat. She's the founder of the Haitian Association of Diplomats and International Affairs and currently serves as the secretary of the UNA USA Bronx chapter and also the manager for African League Diplomacy for the Florida Board. Her work focuses on SDG 1, 4, and 13, championing equity, climate action, and quality education, while amplifying youth voices on the global stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I hand over to Ms. Fabiola Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fabiola, are you on? Hello, Fabiola, you can unmute? Yes, now we can hear you.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here today, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for your hard work for the community. Thanks so much to all the guests. Thank you. Honorable guests and young leaders, it is an honor to be here to celebrate International Youth Day. This day is not just a day on the calendar, it is called to actions. It reminds us that young people can change the future. Before I continue, I want to tell you about my role as a chair in Model United Nations while I was a student. Being the chair means helping everyone that share the idea and make sure the meeting went well and fair. Leadership is not about being perfect. It's about being brave and helping others grow. This is what the Commonwealth say it is important, giving young people to change to lead and be heard. The term local youth action for the SDG and beyond remind us that real change starts with each of us. It's beginning in our community, school, and neighbors. Even small action can grow into a big change. This matches what the Commonwealth teach that young people should take a part in the community and help build a better world. I grew up in Haiti, where many young people face problems like having a good quality school, few jobs, and unfair treatment. But I also saw something strong, the hope and power of young people. This is what the Commonwealth call youth strength and resilience. As a Model United Nations delegate also, I have represented countries like Gabon, Italy, Ireland, the Bahamas, and Haiti. Each time I meet many young people from different places. We share ideas and work together to solve problems. They show the Commonwealth idea that youth from all backgrounds should be included and listen to each other. This is why I believe the Model Commonwealth Summit is more than just a meeting. It's help young people learn how to speak well, listening carefully, work in team, and lead. They teach us to talk about important world problems. It is also help us make friends from many countries. This is the kind of the youth empowerment the Commonwealth wants. If you ask yourself, can I make a difference? The answer is yes. The Commonwealth say when young people get a good education and chance to take a part, they can change the world. Now it is time to act. Young people are fighting for climate change, equality, and health, but we need more voice. We need your voice. Don't just watch what's happening. Be the one who can make change happening. Be brave. Be curious. Be curious. Believe in yourself. You are never too young or too small to lead. You are exactly what the world needs. Even if you feel scared, take a step forward. I believe there is no failure, only learning and growing. You're never too young or too small to lead. You are exactly what we need now. Even if you feel scared, as I say, take the step. The most important is to try and keep going. I invite you to join the Model Commonwealth Summer. Together, we can grow our skill, build our leadership, and make strong friendship with other young leaders. Together, we can learn, inspire, and build a future full of hope and strength. just like the Commonwealth wants. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Fabiola, for the opportunity to also share insight and the work we do also here at the Model Commonwealth Summit. We are not perfect, as you mentioned, and we use the opportunity or the platform to engage in youth dialogue. We learn from ourselves and we connect from across the world, and I think it's a very wonderful experience that we all want to encourage. And from the insight we have received from Layne and yourself, we will be able to put all of that together and be able to progress with the conversation even at the summit level. So thank you so much. I don't know if anybody has got any final remark to give concerning the presentation by Fabiola Thomas and any other. Layne is still on the call, so probably last remark and we can finally end our meeting. Any remarks from anyone? Because this is the only opportunity we have. Sometimes opportunities are not always available. So this is one of it. Sure. All right, sure. Layne, just to take your last remark, how is Commonwealth Secretariat celebrating the International Youth Day 2025?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so that's the big thing. So in the next, let me just say, in the Commonwealth, we are doing a few things. So on the International Youth, well, from tomorrow, we're going to be training the National Youth Council, 250 young people here in Nairobi on youth mainstreaming, leadership, and it's going to be fantastic. So we're starting our work here in Namibia. We're going to be training all the youth councils in the regions, and that's one of the things we're doing. The second thing, we talked about the Secretary General, the Honorable Shirley Botch, where she'll be hosting a special breakfast in the Secretariat for all the young staff that we have there, and to have a dialogue with them and to listen to them, which I think is quite good about their future aspirations and their ideas around the Commonwealth. And then later that day, we will be launching the 2026 Youth Awards. So it's going to be at about 2:30 in the afternoon online. You can listen to that webinar just for an hour. With Secretary, we'll be launching the Youth Awards for 2026. That's funding for you. Somebody asked about where do I get funding? Funding will be available for your projects if you're doing really well with them. So you can apply for funding. Their applications will open on the 12th. SG will launch at 1. Perhaps you're a youth worker. We'll also be launching the Youth Worker Awards on the same day, because in November, we'll be having the 5th Commonwealth Youth Work Conference in Malaysia from the 17th to the 19th of November. You can check it out online. We'll be launching the Youth Worker Awards. We'll be celebrating the people working with young people. So the first award is for young people themselves as leaders and agents of change. The second one is for the people who are working with young people, the adults, the older ones, the seniors, the elders who are supporting youth. You can nominate them for the award. And then last thing we'll launch on International Youth Day is the Youth Leadership Program. Now, the last thing we'll do as a Commonwealth is we're partnering with UNDESA, and I'm glad Lawrence is online. The official Youth Day activity will be in Nairobi, Kenya. UNDESA with UN Habitat, along with others, including the Commonwealth, will be commemorating the day, focusing on localizing SDGs. This is going to be the big event of the day. So if you have opportunity to follow the social media hashtags, IYD or SDG, try and look out for what is happening there in Nairobi to celebrate and commemorate Youth Birthday. So these and many other things we are doing, but this is just our small contribution. So my last word is to wish every one of you a happy International Youth Day when it comes. If you're watching this delayed, happy International Youth Day to you as well. Keep doing the great work you're doing to strengthen the youth sector, to lead and to carry out your work. Thank you for the wonderful leadership you're already showing. We just need to continue doing that to make our world a better place. The world doesn't have to be the way it is. It can be different if more of our young people challenge the status quo, ask for that accountability, and follow a consistent pathway of doing simple things that will make a big difference. You can be the difference, that's my word. So enjoy the International Youth Day, but don't just enjoy the day. Do something with it. Do something. Write somebody, call a letter, tweet, have a discussion, but do something with the knowledge you now have on these Marlborough House commitments. Thank you so much, Martin, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you very much, Layne, for the opportunity, and that's very insightful to hear from you and the words you have given to us to encourage, giving us the insights about the Commonwealth today, the diversity, the voluntary membership of member countries, and the shared values that they are also following in respect of achieving the aspirations of the Commonwealth. And that is great to hear from you. And in fact, with the commitment from the youth ministers meeting and the outcome document, it's also very good to hear from them. We'll be reaching to their offices and to hear from them on what they are doing and how best we can equally help in the implementation of some of these targets. So thank you very much for all teams on the call, all African student unions, and there's so many groups and individuals who are present on the call. Thank you so much. We would like to end our discussions. So Layne can rest. He's already tired from the Namibia conference, and I'm sure we can also take our rest as we prepare for the week ahead. So happy International Youth Day. I would love for us to take a quick photograph. How is that even possible? So yes, let's see whether we can see your faces so we can take a quick photograph on that. Oh, sure. Okay. Are we good? All right. Okay. So happy International Youth Day 2025. So thank you. Okay, sure. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'll say goodbye. Layne, thank you very much for the opportunity. We are so grateful. We'll reach out to you again.